mission in Hodeidah says its convoy was struck by landmine yesterday. The U.S. envoy Tim King says the situation in Yemen is extremely critical. Disabled people in Yemen continue to bear the brunt of the ongoing conflict. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Rushan Fuad. The head of Ummah, Michael Berry, survived a mine explosion while his convoy was passing through El Hali district in Hodeidah. The sources stated that he was to attend destroying a large quantity of explosives when one vehicle of his convoy was struck by a landmine. The following report has more details.
A number of members of the United Nations mission to implement the Stockholm Agreement were killed or injured after the explosion of a minefield in Hodeidah, western Yemen. Local sources stated that a minefield planned by the Houthi militia exploded in the convoy of the head of the United Nations mission sponsoring the Stockholm Agreement, killing or injuring a number of members of the mission, and the United Nations senior official escaped the explosion. The Houthi militia planted mines and explosive devices of various types throughout the areas under their control in Yemen. Human rights reports indicated that the Houthi militia has planted more than 2 million mines, killing and injuring more than 20,000 civilians. According to Yemeni observatories, landmines cause the destruction and damage of nearly 3,000 public and private facilities in a number of Yemeni governorates. Landmines and explosives pose a direct threat to the lives of civilians, especially children. According to figures verified by the United Nations, as of August 2021, nearly 10,000 children were either killed or injured as a result of the conflict in Yemen, and a large number of them were landmine victims. Human Rights Watch reported that Houthi mines continue to indiscriminately kill civilians and cause psychological and social trauma. Travelers, herders, farmers, children, women, and displaced persons, even animals, are not spared the evils of these dangerous explosives. Mines have far-reaching repercussions not only for individual families but for society as a whole. Families that depend on grazing and farming lose their livelihood when the primary breadwinner becomes disabled or maimed because of a landmine. Many farmers are even refraining from plowing their farms out of fear for their lives. Furthermore, neurological diseases and physical abnormalities have become prevalent in the country, but are almost impossible to treat because of Yemen's poor healthcare system, which struggles to provide basic medical services for all.
Also in Hodeidah, a Houthi mine exploded in a vehicle belonging to a citizen north of Hais district. The correspondent of Yemen Today channel said that an anti-tank mine exploded in a vehicle that was carrying livestock in the populated area of Beni Shahel north of Hais.
We were in our way when the landmine exploded. We were carrying cattle. The village is full of landmines. We appear for dismantling these mines. The children are playing here. The car was carrying cattle and people. When the landmine exploded, the people were saved because the cattle separated them from the explosion. After the explosion, we found that there is a landmine field in the area and it is a populated area. We will look to dismantle the whole area. These landmines are posing a danger on people, development and aid agencies. They are a catastrophe on the Yemeni people and on Tihama in specific.
The French ambassador to Yemen, Jean-Marie Safa, said that the Iranian-backed Houthi militia is destroying Yemeni society. The ambassador added that the Houthi project is to impose their full authority and control over all Yemenis and seeks to strangle society, suppress women, and brainwash youth. Yesterday, the U.S. Special Envoy for Yemen, Tim Lenderking, said that there is an urgency to condemn the Houthi recent attacks and to push the Yemeni parties for a comprehensive peace process. Lenderking gave those remarks in front of a committee in the Congress tasked with ending the war in Yemen. This report has more details.
On Tuesday, U.S. Special Envoy to Yemen Tim Lenderking advocated for greater participation and support for a Yemeni-led peace process. "We are at a critical moment. We must preserve the positive momentum and gains made since April," Lenderking stated in a hearing on the country's ongoing civil war. Lenderking applauded the UN-mediated ceasefire between the Houthi rebels and the Yemeni government. The ceasefire, which started on April 2nd and was twice extended, collapsed in early October when the Houthis rejected attempts made by Hans Grunberg, the UN Special Envoy for Yemen, to prolong it for another 6 months. The U.S. envoy said that despite the failure to prolong the truce, attempts to establish a sustainable peace are entering a new era, and that there's probably more engagement between the warring parties now than there ever has been. Lenderking states that this phase sparks hope that in the coming months, more positive movement could be made towards a truce, a ceasefire, and political negotiations which ultimately could end the conflict. Although the U.S. Special Envoy stated that Yemen has a rare opportunity for peace, he emphasized that the situation is still unstable. He stated that the Houthis have a track record of backtracking on their commitments, introducing maximalist demands, and launching attacks that threaten international maritime shipping. After the U.S. urged them to stop their ongoing attacks on ports, the Houthis declared last week that they would continue to defend Sanaa's oil and gas resources. An 8-year civil conflict in Yemen has resulted in the world's biggest humanitarian disaster. The UN estimates that by the end of 2022, more than 17.8 million people, including 9.2 million children, would lack access to services for safe water, sanitation, and hygiene.
Military sources said that the Houthi movements have been monitored on the western coast. The sources stated that the Houthi operations came after news of an American move to deploy platforms to intercept drones and disrupt their work, noting that the Houthi militia sent combat reinforcements including missiles, drones, and naval mines. 3 citizens were killed and others were injured after a Houthi gang attacked the properties of local residents with the aim to seize them. Local sources said 3 other people were wounded after defending their land from the Houthi looting. The sources indicated that the citizens prevented the armed gang from digging a well in their lands, but the armed gang opened fire on them. Years of conflict have cast a shadow on all factions of the Yemeni society, and disabled people are no exception. In Marib, disabled people continue to struggle due to the conflict. This report has more details.
As if a new life has been destined for them, with great happiness, after entertainment tours were held for them that lasted for 3 consecutive days. Here a group of people with disabilities prepares for the race. And here also, others race on foot. Each of them is trying to reach the lot, even if their movement is slow, as it is their first experience. However, they feel their presence in the context of the society.
The occasion of the World Day of Disabilities came, and the disabled here are suffering hard conditions due to the ongoing war that started in 2014. Every year the conditions get worse and suffering is doubled. Frankly, our condition as disabled people is so marginalized. Neither the society nor the government is concerned about us. We need them to unify their efforts and help this faction.
People with disabilities are the segment that is almost completely absent in Maghreb, whether in government departments or social activities, and they don't receive the slightest attention from all concerned officials, human rights organizations, and humanitarian agencies. During an activity organized by people with disabilities in Maghreb, during which they demanded their inclusion and the provision of health and psychological care for them, as they are in dire need of it, noting that their numbers exceeded 16,000 disabled people, most of them as a result of their injuries in the ongoing war and the mines planted by the Houthi militia. There is no life more painful than the life of this segment, which exerts all its energies to coexist with its difficult and bitter reality. And despite that, they find no one to extend a helping hand to pick them up out of suffering by holding rehabilitation and health courses, in addition to educating the community to coexist with the category of disabled.
Coming next. Yemeni women continue to rise and struggle despite war and hard economic conditions.
ننزل ندي ماء من الغيل والغيلة بعيد، كنا ندي بالدواب نعبي ماء وترجعنا. ننزل الساعة 5 رجعنا الساعة 9.
ما يقلنا ظهر لأنه زحمة ما حد يخلي الجهل يغرق وإحنا تعبنا زيادة.
وكنت أحس صدري يوجعني وعز قدرك ركبي يوجعيني.
كنا بنستخدم حتى نغسل أولادنا إلا يعني بأيام معدودة.
كنت أغيب على المدرسة لأن كنت أروح الديمة.
حتى وإن كان يجي الأمطار تروح هدر لأنه ما في معي خزانة.
الوقت نشتري ب30,000 هي معها استهلاك ما يغلقش معها الشهر.
بس راح تطلب الله ولا أي حاجة، عاملة كل شغلك على الماء.
Welcome back. Yemeni women continue to struggle and rise despite war and collapsing economic conditions. They keep determined to contribute to peace building and play an important role regardless of the immense challenges they face. More details on this are within this report.
After 8 years of war that took more than 377,000 lives, Yemen has enjoyed 8 months of relative peace under a ceasefire brokered in April. Poverty remains high and the economy is in shambles. Yet the war has had one salutary consequence. It has led to a shift in the way one of the world's most male-dominated societies values women. The Presidential Leadership Council (PLC), an interim governance coalition set up under the truce, appointed the first woman to the Supreme Judicial Council, the highest court authority. 2 Yemeni women were recognized by the United States Institute of Peace in Washington for their success in rights advocacy and peace building. Women have, in fact, been a persistent force in Yemen's pro-democracy and peace movements. They helped secure a 2015 draft constitution that would have required that 30% of all governing bodies be filled by women. 3 years later, women helped produce a ceasefire in the port city of Hodeidah. Even so, women still face harsh restrictions in areas controlled by the Houthi militias. They are prohibited from traveling without a male escort. The PLC includes no women. But even as the war has compounded the dire condition Yemenis women face, it has also created new necessities for their inclusion. As men have gone to war, women and the growing network of organizations created by them have stepped in. They are learning to tap the very cultural traditions that shaped their exclusion. According to the United Nations, in the southwest city of Taiz, a local female civil society leader rallied the town's male elder behind her effort to restore water resources. co-opted by the military. On first reception, the military wouldn't accept her negotiating as a woman, but when they saw all the local leaders in the city in the alliance, all religion men and local authorities from the city, they agreed to talk. A future for Yemen was built on equal citizenship, democracy and national reconciliation. It has to emerge from the ground up by empowering the local communities, especially women and youth, giving them something to care about rather than engage them in the armed conflict in search of a source of income or empty ideology. From Iran to Sudan in recent years, democracy movements have poured into the streets to challenge the restrictive rules of male-dominated regimes. Those open protests are more visible expressions of the quieter revolutions taking place within Middle Eastern societies waged, as they are in Yemen, by recognizing women as equal with men in creating just, peaceful societies.
Dozens of Taiz University teaching assistants held a protest against the failure to complete the procedures for their appointment. The protesters demanded the PLC implement the Republican decision to appoint the first public universities with the rank of assistant professor.
We call on the authorities to implement the presidential decree to appoint the students of high honors in the government universities. And we call the authorities also to implement the decree of appointment since 2013. We also urge them to financially boost the newly appointed students with high honors. We request them to secure a definite number of scholarships to the students of Taiz University.
With direct support from King Salman's fund, the free medical camp in Taiz targeted 4,000 cases of the glaucoma in the city. The following report has more details.
Funded by the King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center, the free medical camp for eyes was inaugurated in the Republican Hospital in Taiz, with the aim of examining 4,000 cases and conducting 400 cataract removal and lens implantation operations, in addition to disturbing free treatment to the poor. 6 years after his right eye was infected with cataracts, Hazza Ghalib is a man in his 50s lying on his sick bed after undergoing cataract removal and lens implantation in the free eye camp at Al-Jumhuri Hospital.
When I got the news that this medical camp conducts free surgeries, I came here immediately, and now I just finished my surgery. Thank God for the people that helped me.
Hazza Ghalib is one of the hundreds of people who suffer from eye diseases of different age groups who flocked early to the Republican Teaching Hospital, waiting for their turn to complete their treatment. These people found the free camp for eye patients an opportunity for treatment after they had been unable for years to provide the costs of operations.
I've been suffering from cataract for 20 years. I went everywhere and they told me that I need a surgery. Now with this medical camp, I hope I can get one.
We aim to help people with blindness and the poor people who need surgeries. We are given checkups for up to 4,000 people and 400 surgeries. We are also giving people the required medicines for their treatment.
The free camp for eyes continues to conduct operations at the Republican Hospital in Taiz for a period of 5 days in the morning and in evening periods. Yemenis are suffering day after day, especially with their poor living conditions. This camp will help so many people to get the needed medical treatment.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. The United Nations mission in Hodeidah says its convoy was struck by a landmine yesterday. The U.S. envoy Tim King says the situation in Yemen is extremely critical. Disabled people in Yemen continue to bear the brunt of the ongoing conflict. This is the end of the news. It was Roshan Fouad. Thank you for watching.